Your heart always has the answer. Remember, only you know what you need. Only you know what you want. Only you know what will bring you happiness. Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day. Today, we are talking about how only you know what you need. It's true. You are the only person who knows what you need and what you want and what will bring you joy and happiness. It sounds so simple. It sounds so ridiculously simple. And yet, it's one of those things that eludes us all the time. We get in our own way of happiness. I can't wait to talk about this with you today because as we're going into this Christmas season, I know that this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we have. Here, we've just had a phenomenal Thanksgiving. We hopefully had moments of appreciation and gratitude and little recognitions of what matters so much to us, little sparks, and when you really get an idea of, oh yeah, that's what I really love about life. Whether it's family or freedom or stepping into your own desires or sleep. Sometimes it takes a moment for us to recognize how valuable and important these values are to us and to put aside all the expectations and should haves or would haves or supposed tos. And sometimes there's so much noise that we can't even hear for ourselves what we want and what we need. And that's why I keep coming back to only you know what you need. I had this great realization the other week in the office, in the dental office. Once again, story from the dental chair from my orthodontic practice. I had a new patient, mom, come in with her two kids. So her kids were the patients, and she was bringing them to me, younger kids, 8 and 10 years old. And she was asking about their need for orthodontics at this point. And it was very clear to me from a clinical standpoint that especially the younger one needed something to be done sooner than later. And there's a host of reasons why. He was having airway issues. His arches are really small. He's very crowded. He wasn't sleeping well. This is kind of bubbling over into his inattentiveness at school. He's a little bit difficulty focusing because he's just not getting good sleep at night. And he's very, very crowded. And he has a high risk of impacted canines. You know, all these dental terms that you hear me use on this podcast, just to let you know that, yeah, I think he needs treatment. The story, however, isn't about teeth. The story is about the mom. This incredible mother who brought her children in because she loves them and cares for them and wants to give them the best in their healthcare needs, is also a woman who helps save lives beyond those of her children's. She literally helps fight sex trafficking. She's incredible. She's an amazing woman. She goes out and advocates for women who can't stand up for themselves. And in order to do this, she actually doesn't live in the United States. She lives on an island in the ocean, and I'm trying to keep her privacy here in case anybody knows her, but she travels millions of miles to live on this island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean to help fight and combat sex trafficking. And when she came to me this day, as in the new patient exam, she said, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. The kids are coming with me. We live on this island during the year. How badly does he need orthodontics? What's so fascinating from this story is, as we were chatting about why I thought it was so important for him to get orthodontic care, it became very clear that she was having an internal struggle. She wanted me to let her know how critical it was for him to get his care. And she wanted me to tell her to stay in the States, to not go back to this island, to not pursue her career at this point to put her child's health first. That's what she wanted me to say. She wanted also me to be the bad guy. She wanted to be so angry. She was clearly defensive and kept posing the question, so do you want me to quit my job? You want me not to help these women? She was asking me for permission to stay home and also to be angry at me so that she had a good excuse for that decision. I share this story with you because it was such a clear recognition of what we do to ourselves all the time. I had so much compassion for her because I saw myself in her. Sometimes we really know what we want, but we're so afraid to admit that that's what we want, that we want someone else to be the bad guy. We want someone else to tell us what to do, and then we want to be really angry at that person for preventing us from making our own decisions. Oh, isn't it fascinating how sometimes we can be our biggest obstacles in finding our own truth and in finding our own happiness? Sometimes we know what we want, but it's so clouded by our own judgment, so clouded by our own expectations of what we should be doing, what we're supposed to be doing, that we can't allow ourselves a moment to recognize what it is that we want from our own lives. This woman was a perfect example of that to me. On the one hand, she really wanted to be there for those women, the women whose lives she was saving. I could see how important her profession was to her. And at the same time, she was having this internal struggle with being there for her children and giving her children the best of what they need. What she wanted was someone to tell her what to do. But what she needed was for her to recognize her own values. There is no way I could tell her what to do. I do not know what's best for her. All I know is that when she would be able to stand in her own truth and recognize what she wanted, what would light her up, what would bring her joy, she could make no mistakes. And that's the truth. When you stand in your own values and recognize your values, you cannot make a mistake. Sure, things might happen and you might recognize, oh, that's not what I wanted. You might make a decision and then 2 months in realize, oh, I should have chosen A instead of B. All that is more information for you to get closer to the truth. Look at this beautiful example of this woman. She had only good intentions. We can see outside of her story that either way would have been the right decision. If she had gone to this island in the Pacific to continue her incredible work saving other women, she could have made good decisions about getting her children's care in America. She could have put in place some great support for them. She could have gone to a different island for orthodontic care. She didn't have to get it done in the States. We can think of a million ways she could have achieved everything she wanted to. But the question is, did she really want to stay home? Did she really want to be home with her children and have a very good excuse to do so? Perhaps that's what her heart was calling her to do. And she just really needed an excuse to take a break from saving women's lives so that she could save her own and her family's. It's so fascinating how when we step outside of someone else's life, we can clearly see, with so much clarity, the options available to them. And we can clearly see that there is no wrong decision, that there are no mistakes. There are only choices, and we can learn from them. Isn't it fascinating? And what happens to us in our own lives, the reason why we can't is because we get so wrapped up in the emotions of it, right? We can just picture her in that moment and feel the anxiety, feel the stress, feel the expectations and the judgment, and that emotion clouds us from the truth. But really, all we need to do is step outside of the emotions and the judgment and look at it with clarity. Kind of pull yourself out of your body, if you will, and look at yourself from a 50,000-foot perspective so that you can see your options and see that there are no wrong choices. Because only you know what you need. Nobody else. Not your orthodontist, not even your therapist. Your therapist can only guide you to see and understand more clearly, but only you know what you need. And only you know what will bring you joy and happiness. And when you can tap into that, everything changes. Everything changes when you can understand with more clarity what it is that you need, what it is that you want. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know. So what I love to do on this podcast is not only bring you the story and the awareness. So in this case, the awareness is only you know what you need. But now let's talk about a practice. Okay, Tarryn, I get it. Only I know what I need. Well, how do I figure that out? What if I'm sitting here and I don't honestly know what I need, what I want? I have these two options. Go to the island in the Pacific and save women's lives, or stay home in the comfort of the United States with all the entitlement and opportunity that the United States has to offer. How do I know which one will bring me joy? Well, here's the practice. It's a simple 5-step practice. Isn't that funny? I often come to these 5-step practices, but follow along if you will. Step number 1, pause. That's my go-to always. When you don't know what to do, when you don't know what step to take, just stop, pause, take a deep breath. Don't do a thing for now. That's always my answer. Just pause. Step 2, ask the question. What is it I want in this moment? Sometimes what we want in the moment is very different from what we want in the long term, and that's okay. Sometimes those two things can even look like the complete opposite of one another. Perhaps this woman wanted in the long term to be the savior of women, to change the laws in another country, to save women from sex trafficking and be the person who's recognized for that. Or maybe she wanted a legacy of support to continue her good work, and that's her long-term goal. But in this moment, perhaps her goal is being here for her family in America while they're still little. So sometimes those goals look opposite, but they don't have to be. We can have short-term goals and we can have long-term goals, and they don't have to be antithetical to one another. So the question is just ask, what do I need? What do I want? And then step 3, just wait to hear the answer. It always comes, I promise. Sometimes it feels like it's not coming soon enough. Sometimes we just need a little bit more time to block out the noise and the stimulus and all the stories that we have wrapped around ourselves. You know, this past weekend, after the Thanksgiving celebration, I took my kids down to New York City, and I forgot how intense the city is. But it was a great reminder of all the stimulus that we have all around us all the time. And sometimes all that noise really stops you from being able to recognize what you want. I mean, I had trouble even making a decision about where to eat for lunch because of the lights of Times Square and all the people, and we were worried about COVID and the proximity to the people around us and the noises and, oh my gosh, the smells of New York City. If you haven't been recently or if you live there, you know what I'm talking about. It's a whole thing, but it's a sensory overload. No wonder I couldn't decide where to go to lunch. I couldn't even think about what I wanted to eat. I couldn't even get to that place because of all the noise. And that's such a great analogy in our lives. Sometimes we don't even know what we want because of all the noise in our life. And so the superpower always is to come home to yourself, to block out the noise and sit quietly and ask, what is it that I want? And then wait patiently for the answer. Your heart always has the answer. Remember, only you know what you need. Only you know what you want. Only you know what will bring you happiness, even in your business. Bring it back to running a business. In your business, what do you want? What does success look like to you? Maybe short-term goals and long-term goals, but what does it mean to you? And put aside all the expectations that consultants and gurus and lecturers tell you you should or shouldn't have, or expectations from your community, or expectations from your family. Put them aside, find quiet, ask yourself the question, and then quietly wait for the answer. Almost without a doubt, what will come up for you are some reasons why that can't be. Try this exercise and you will see I can predict 100% of the time you'll start hearing reasons why that can't happen. So look at them. What is the conflict? That's step 4. Step 4 is look at the conflict. What is the conflict? And step 5 is, what if I knew I couldn't make a mistake? What if I knew that no matter what the conflict is, I couldn't make a mistake? Then what would I choose? Yes, I hear all the excuses coming at me. I really want this, but I'm hearing all these other reasons. If I knew, no matter what choice I made, I couldn't make a mistake, which one would I choose? So let's take that example of that mom wanting to go to Fiji, to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, to save women's lives, but also wanting to stay home and be here for her children. What if we could see outside of the emotion and the stories she has wrapped around? What if we could see that no matter what she chose, she couldn't make a mistake? Because either one is enormously honorable, and either one she can support from afar. She really could make it all work if she wanted to. She just has to decide, where does her personal body need to be? Does it need to be in Fiji, or does it need to be in the United States? And so which one would you choose? That's a powerful one, because that one taps into that same idea of nobody can know except you. So if you know you can't make a mistake, which one would you choose? And that's it, my friends. Then you honor the answer. You give yourself permission to follow your heart. That's what tapping into your intuition is. That's what tapping into your spiritual guides is. That's what tapping into your experience and your knowledge, because no one else has lived this life. No one has experienced what you've experienced. No one's accumulated the talent and the expertise that you have. You are the best at what you do in your space. You really are. Honor that. Nobody else can know what the next step should be for you. But you can ask yourself, and then know that you can't make a mistake. Let me be the one to tell you, this holiday season, when you get that spark, when you tap into, oh, this is what feels so good. Ride that train, my friend. Find that thing that feels so good and know that that is your little window into your intuition. That's the window into your passion and your purpose. Now give yourself that permission to pursue it. Maybe in the long term, maybe in the short term. But know that that's that recognition of what matters to you that only you can know. So as we go forward with this Christmas season and we get inundated with more and more stimulation in terms of Christmas carols and expectations of gingerbread house making. And if you're a mom of little kids, you know what I mean. This season can be overwhelming. Just remember that only you can know what matters to you, and only you can make a decision in terms of what's best for you. And take pride in that. Take ownership of that. You've got this. Other things you're going to let fall. You don't need to do the things that other people expect of you. You only need to pay attention to what matters most to you. And sometimes that takes a minute to just step outside of the noise, to ask yourself that question. I honor you. This is a crazy time always. There's so much joy and opportunity and abundance for recognizing the gifts of the season. Sometimes that in and of itself can seem overwhelming. Feel like we have to be present for everything that's available to us. And the question just is, what do you choose? And there's so much freedom in that. We get to ask ourselves that question at work and in our lives every single day. And the freedom of it really is that you cannot make a mistake, because if you have chosen something that doesn't fly for you, you're going to find out real soon. And then you get to choose again. I love this work. I love bringing this information to you. I love sharing this awareness and giving you an opportunity to just think a little bit differently. And I honor you for doing so. We aren't taught this in business school. We aren't taught this in medical and dental school. In fact, we aren't even taught this in parenting. This is just becoming keenly aware of our own power and empowering ourselves to make decisions that feel good. And you've heard this before, my friend, but I'll say it again. Because when you feel good, when you give yourself the permission to feel good, when you give yourself the permission to follow your dreams and your passions and to dip into a little bit more of what lights you up, that's when you can really do good in this world. Because when you're coming at it from this place of enormous love and compassion for yourself, then you can have enormous love and compassion for those around you. Happy holidays.